Quickfire questions. Who was the only woman to set foot on the beaches that day? How did the Allies convince the Nazis that an entire army had landed somewhere else? And which elite military unit secretly selected the D-Day landing zones? If you're drawing blanks, don't worry. Here are 5 things you probably didn't know about D-Day, but you really should. Number 1. The battleship that sank itself to keep on fighting. Let's start with a warship so determined to help the Allied cause, it deliberately sank itself. Meet the USS Texas, a battle-hardened beast launched in 1914. A New York-class battleship, she was cutting-edge in her day, becoming the first American warship fitted with anti-aircraft guns and modern fire control systems, the very tools that shaped modern naval combat. During World War I, she escorted President Woodrow Wilson to France for the Treaty of Versailles. Between the wars, she acted as a floating palace for U.S. commanders and even ferried President Calvin Coolidge to the Pan American Conference in Cuba. Fast forward to World War II. Despite being nearly 30 years old, the USS Texas was still swinging. After major upgrades, she joined the most daring amphibious assault in history. On D-Day, she was stationed off Omaha Beach, tasked with supporting the U.S. 29th Infantry and the 2nd and 5th Ranger Battalions at Pointe du Hoc. Her firepower was staggering. 255 shells in just 34 minutes. To compare, during Operation Torch in North Africa, she only fired 300 shells over 8 days. But her most daring moment came a week later. With the front line being pushed inland, German targets were now out of reach, literally. Her guns couldn't aim high enough, so her crew made a radical decision. They would sink the USS Texas on purpose. By flooding her starboard torpedo blisters, they tilted the entire ship 2 degrees, just enough for the portside guns to lock on and fire inland. It was an insane gamble, but it worked. This bold maneuver kept the USS Texas in the fight, allowing her to keep supporting troops as they heroically charged deeper into enemy territory. Number 2. How the Allies fooled the Nazis with scarecrows. So D-Day wasn't just a military invasion, it was also a masterclass in deception. In the dead of night on June 5th to the 6th, 1944, Operation Titanic was launched. Its goal? Tricked the Nazis into believing airborne troops were landing in the wrong places. Enter the Ruperts, about 500 parachute-equipped dummies made of Hessian sacks stuffed with straw. Only about 3 feet tall, but from the ground, they looked real enough, especially when some were booby-trapped with explosives that mimicked self-destructing parachutes. British RAF special squadrons dropped these scarecrows across Normandy, especially south of where the real paratroopers were landing. Near Caen and Saint-Valery-en-Caux, a few SAS operatives even jumped alongside the Ruperts, planting loudspeakers to play fake battle noises, gunfire, shouting, boots on gravel. And it worked. Nazi radio chatter picked up reports of paratroopers, phantoms that didn't exist. In response, entire German units like the 915th Grenadier Regiment were diverted away from the real beaches. That's right, fake scarecrows helped save real lives. Without Operation Titanic, we might not have the stories of the 101st Airborne. In fact, no Ruperts might mean no Band of Brothers. The legacy of D-Day doesn't just live in textbooks or documentaries. It lives on in places, in artifacts, even in the land and sea itself. That's where today's sponsor, Praesidus Watch Company, comes in, with a tribute unlike anything ever attempted. Praesidus is not just another watch company inspired by military history, they're doing something no watchmaker has ever done before. To mark the 81st anniversary of D-Day, they've created a new timepiece collection unlike anything else. The steel cases of these watches were submerged in the waters of Utah Beach, one of the original D-Day landing zones, and left there to age in the same salt and sand that met American troops on June 6, 1944. Right now, those cases still rest beneath the waves, shaped not by hands or machines, but by time, tide, and memory. They won't be polished, they won't be previewed. They'll be recovered on June 6, 2025, exactly 81 years to the day after the invasion. Don't wait. Quantities are limited due to the nature of the project. A commemoration piece like this won't be coming out again anytime soon. Sign up now using the link below. Number 3. The only woman to set foot on Omaha Beach. The beaches of Normandy were supposed to be a men-only zone, but Martha Gellhorn didn't care much for rules. Born in 1908, Gellhorn was a fearless war correspondent long before women were supposed to be doing that kind of thing. By age 32, she had already reported from the front lines of the Spanish Civil War, spent 2 months living in the White House, and married literary giant Ernest Hemingway, who soon realized his wife was more interested in battlefields than domestic bliss. When World War II broke out, Gellhorn reported from Finland, Czechoslovakia, and China. By 1943, she was covering the French campaign in Italy. Then came D-Day. Collier's magazine was only allowed to send one correspondent. Hemingway used his clout to take the slot, blocking Gellhorn from the story of a lifetime. Her response? Go rogue. She boarded a hospital ship disguised as a nurse and hid in a toilet until it sailed for Normandy. Under the cover of night, she slipped ashore in a landing craft with medics, following a white-taped path through the chaos of Omaha Beach to a Red Cross tent. After interviewing soldiers in foxholes, she helped evacuate the wounded back to the ship. When she returned to England, she was arrested, but only briefly. Martha Gellhorn would go on to cover the Battle of the Bulge and the liberation of Dachau. She was the only woman known to have landed at Normandy on D-Day, and she did it without permission, without backup, and without fear. Number 4. Mini-subs that secretly chose the beaches. If you've never heard of the X-Craft, don't worry, most people haven't. But they may be the unsung heroes of D-Day. Built by the British in secret, these were miniature submarines, just 50 feet long and barely wide enough to turn around in. Piloted by just 4 men, they were powered by repurposed London bus engines, and they were packed with sonar, periscopes, and explosives. Originally designed to sabotage enemy ships, they shifted to recon for D-Day. Enter the Combined Operations Pilotage and Reconnaissance Parties, or COP, a special forces unit tasked with charting the invasion beaches. In January 1944, they scouted the French coast from beneath the waves. Using periscopes and sonar, they identified Gold, Sword, Juneau, Utah, and Omaha as ideal landing sites. They also helped clear German mines to make the landings possible. Then came the final mission. On the night of June 2nd to the 3rd, X-Craft X-20 and X-23 quietly parked themselves 3 miles off Normandy. Their job? Mark the landing zones using signal lights, echo sounders, and radio beacons without being spotted. They were the first Allied units to enter France. But D-Day was delayed due to bad weather. The subs only had 64 hours of oxygen, and had the invasion been pushed back even further, they would have had to surface, blowing the entire operation. Thankfully, the weather cleared just in time. Fueled by Benzedrine to stay awake, the men held their breath, literally and figuratively, until June 5th. Thanks to their guidance, the invasion fleet hit the beaches exactly where it needed to. Only one X-Craft survives today. It sits quietly at the Royal Navy Submarine Museum in Gosport. But its story deserves far more noise. Number 5. The undersea oil pipeline you've never heard of. It's one thing to invade a continent, it's another to fuel the tanks, trucks, and planes that keep the advance going. Enter Operation Pluto, short for Pipeline Under the Ocean. Tankers were too slow and too vulnerable. So in 1942, British engineers developed a wild idea. Why not build a pipeline under the English Channel? 2 types of pipe were invented. Hy's pipes, made from steel and lead, were laid down using modified cable-laying ships. Hamel pipes, made from stiff steel, were deployed using giant floating spools called conundrums. Imagine a 60-foot high sewing bobbin dragged behind a tugboat. The pipelines would run from the Isle of Wight to Cherbourg, France, but secrecy was key. Pumping stations were disguised as seaside villas, old forts, even amusement parks. A fake oil dock was built at Dover to distract the Luftwaffe. Wind machines kicked up dust to simulate construction. Even King George VI visited the fake site to sell the illusion. This ruse worked. 2 months after D-Day, the first pipeline went live. Eventually, 17 lines delivered over 3,500 tons of fuel a day to the front lines. Operation Pluto was the logistical miracle that no one saw coming, and without it, the Allies' advance might have run out of gas, literally. So there you have it. Battleships that sank themselves, female war correspondents who broke the rules, parachuting scarecrows, mini-subs with missions straight out of spy thrillers, and an undersea pipeline that turned the tide of the war. D-Day wasn't just about brute force. It was about innovation, deception, and a whole lot of guts. Now you know 5 stories that prove June 6, 1944 was even more astonishing than you thought.